This is our indoor home composting, worm composting bin. We actually have it in the office here at Marion County Extension, and so with us being out of the office so much these days, these worms are pretty hungry, so we're going to feed them today. We feed them with kitchen scraps and paper scraps, the inner rolls from paper towels and toilet paper. And, the paper is the carbon, and the kitchen scraps are the nitrogen. So this bin, being indoor, is made out of two bins. The bottom bin does not have holes in the bottom, but the top bin, where the worms and the food are, does have holes in the bottom so that water can drain out. Outside, that's not such a problem, but in your house, you don't want that in your pantry floor. So we put a full bin underneath to capture that water. We're going to lift this out. There you go. Set this aside. Oh, look at all those worms down there. So inside, you can see that there's a lot of the compost that's dripped out, or a lot of moisture from the compost is dripped out. Some of the worms have migrated down there, but you see we have those two bricks down there. And what they do is suspend the inner bin so that the moisture can all flow out and it doesn't gather on the bottom of the floor. The worms won't stay in a pool of water, although they do need moisture. They breathe through their skin. So we keep the bedding of the worm bin, and here we've used wood chips. We keep it moist but not wet. You wouldn't want to be able to wring it like a sponge, but you definitely want it to be moist. So we're gonna lift the newspaper, and you always want to bury your scraps really well, because scraps left on the top can attract fruit flies also. We'll probably dig a couple holes here and split the feed between both sides. There's our scraps from home. I'm gonna put half the bin over here. You can see there's toilet paper rolls and coffee and produce. There's a lunch bag in there, paper bag. I'm gonna cover this up with what we have, and then later we're gonna come back with some moist chips so that we can cover it up more. Since the level of the compost bin was so low, we decided to bring in more bedding to raise it up so that we can get those scraps buried down underneath the surface of the material. So I'm going to start by adding some more material, and then we're going to put some damp wood chips on top of it. Now that's a little excess water. It'll drain out the bottom, and tomorrow we'll check the bottom to see if we need to empty it. Nice and level. There was some water pooling in the bottom of the bucket. So tomorrow we'll come back and also check the moisture of the chips. Make sure that they're moist, but that you can't squeeze any water out of them. Okay, so that's almost all the way back up to where we started. We could still get another inch or two in there. We're going to cover it up with the newspaper again. And then one last thing we want to share today is the screen. So this screen allows us, when we're ready to harvest, to screen out the larger particles. Remember, we don't want wood in our compost. We don't want excessive carbon in our garden. So we screen out those larger particles so that we can get that fine finished product.